Embroidery Time 1. This needle technique diagram has satin embroidery, sandy chrysanthemum stitch, femme stitch, French bean embroidery, straight stitch, satin embroidery, chain stitch, long and short needlessy, chrysanthemum leaf embroidery, weaving stitch. These embroidery techniques. Let's take a look at the effect image here. It represents the upper bust embroidery thread below. 3 strands are used for embroidery thread number 8. Chain stitch. This pattern uses 3 strands of line 8. Chain stitch. Remove the embroidery thread to be embroidered from the thread board. A single embroidery thread consists of 6 small strands. A few shares can be divided into several shares. Thread the divided embroidery thread onto the needle. Finished embroidery thread. One side should be long and the other side should be short. Tie a knot at the long end to embroider it. The 3 strands of line 2 are used here. Satin embroidery. Satin embroidery. Embroidering a straight line between 2 points in the pattern. Stitch after stitch loop embroidery until I embroider this pattern full. Embroider from the middle of this pattern. This makes it easier to grasp the direction of the embroidery thread. These petals are embroidered with 3-strand satin fabric from line 9. The 3 strands of line 7 are used here. French bean needle embroidery. The needle comes out from the bottom. Pinch the embroidery thread with your left hand and wrap it around the needle. Thread this stitch tightly into the embroidered fabric. Do not loosen the thread on the left hand. Slowly pull the line on the right hand. Be careful not to be too tight until the end. If it's too tight, this place won't be full. Straight stitch. Embroidering a straight line between 2 points in the pattern. The 3 strands of line 7 are used here. We are using 3-strand straight needle embroidery from line 3 here. Back stitch. First, embroider a straight stitch on the embroidered fabric, then take another stitch forward under the embroidered fabric. This stitch is flipping back to the previous stitch. Repeat embroidery like this. Long and short needle embroidery. Embroider a straight stitch inside the pattern first, and then next to this injection, embroider a shorter straight line. Repeat embroidery like this. This is the long and short needle on the first layer. The first layer's long and short needles, about 2/3 of the proportion of this pattern. After the completion of the first layer's long and short needle embroidery, stitching on this embroidery section, continue to embroider the long and short needles for the second layer. The second layer is embroidered with about half of the pressure on the first layer. Three-dimensional chrysanthemum stitch. Let's first move the two ends of the pattern. Embroider these two small straight lines well. Then, the needle is inserted in a straight line next to it. After the needle is inserted, it passes through a straight line. Passing through the second straight line again. Repeat the shuttle like this, until I embroider this pattern full. Then thread this stitch into the embroidered fabric. Weaving stitch. First, embroider this parallel straight line. After embroidering, stitch out on these straight lines. This way, each section has a straight line, passing through a straight line. Back up again. Continue to shuttle like this, until this pattern is fully trimmed. First stitch. Embroider a straight stitch first. Then the straight lines on both sides converge towards the middle needle, embroidering in this way. The stem of this small flower is embroidered with straight needles. The leaves are embroidered with chrysanthemum leaves. The needle comes out from the bottom. Thread this stitch tightly into the embroidered fabric. Insert a needle above the pattern again. After inserting the needle, thread it onto the needle, tightening to form a small leaf. Then thread the embroidered fabric tightly along this stitch. The first strands of line 3 are used here. French bean embroidery. Chain stitch. The needle comes out from the bottom. Thread the embroidered fabric along this stitch again. Then take another stitch forward under the embroidered fabric. After inserting the needle, thread it onto the needle, forming a small bow shape. Then thread the embroidered fabric tightly along the previous stitch in the bow shape. Repetitive embroidery. We are using 3-strand satin embroidery from line 9 here. We are using 3-strand straight needle embroidery from line 8 here. The little girl's eyes use 4 strands from line 8, French bean embroidery. The 3 strands of line 8 are used here, satin embroidery. The little girl's cheeks are made of 3 strands of wire 6, embroidered 2 stitches of satin embroidery. We use satin embroidery here. Embroider from the middle of this pattern. This makes it easier to grasp the direction of the embroidery thread. This uses 3 strands from line 7. Long and short needlessly. Use embroidery thread to press down one layer at a time. Embroider the pattern full.